Welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at excerpts from The Way of Peace by James Allen.
Oh, yeah. This one's a classic.
It is. And, I think a lot of our listeners are probably hoping to get a better understanding
Yeah.
how to actually put into practice some of the principles that Allen lays out for finding that
Right.
inner peace that he talks about.
Yeah, he gets right into
He
it.
does. He
And,
does.
he's not messing around.
No.
He's not wasting any time with, pleasantries or,
Right. Right.
introductions. He's like,
Let's straight to the point.
This is how you find peace.
And one of the things I found really interesting right off the bat was how much he emphasizes
Yes.
the power of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically how it helps us to sort of conquer that lust for life
Yes.
that can prevent us from
It's just that,
experiencing deeper peace.
that constant wanting that keeps us agitated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting was how he distinguishes meditation from just zoning out or
Really?
daydreaming.
Yeah.
It's not about escaping reality.
It's not.
It's really about this deep.
No, it's about focused thought.
Focused thought that can actually lead to real transformation.
Yeah, and it changes us.
Yeah.
He's saying that, what we focus on during meditation shapes who we become.
It's like that.
It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
You are what you eat, but it's
Right.
you are what you think.
What do you think? Exactly.
If you're constantly dwelling on selfish desires, you cultivate more selfishness.
Right.
But if you focus your mind on purity, truth, love, those qualities will start to manifest in your life.
Yeah. It's not just some abstract idea either.
No, he uses examples.
He brings up really concrete examples like Buddha and Jesus,
Yes.
and how through dedicated meditation,
They achieve profound realizations.
they were able to achieve these profound realizations that
impact the world in amazing ways.
changed the world.
Yeah, if meditation was
Right.
that important for them, it's probably something worth
checking out.
exploring.
Exactly. And he goes on to say that, if we truly desire things like wisdom, peace, purity,
Right.
we actually need to align our thoughts and actions with those aspirations.
Yeah, align yourself with what you want.
And that meditation can be a really powerful tool
A tool to make that
for
happen.
bridging that gap.
Yeah.
I love how he doesn't just leave us hanging with these lofty ideals.
Right, he gets practical.
He gets practical.
Yeah.
He actually suggests establishing a daily practice of meditation.
Ideally early morning.
Ideally early morning.
Yeah.
Before
Before the day gets going.
the day gets going
Before you get distracted
and all those distractions come in.
by all this stuff.
And I love how he emphasizes being mentally and physically alert during meditation.
Yeah. No hitting the snooze button.
No snooze button. If you're serious about this,
He's like, come on.
get up.
Get up.
Shut up.
Quick.
And it made me think about all those historical figures that we,
Right.
we often hold up as examples.
Buddha,
Buddha, Jesus,
Jacob Bome.
Jacob Bome. These were all really busy people
Oh, for sure.
who still made time for meditation.
Prioritized it.
They prioritized it.
Yeah.
So it's clearly possible.
If they can do it, we can find the time.
We can find the time if we want to.
Absolutely.
And I think this kind of leads us naturally into another big idea that Allen brings up,
Okay.
which is this concept of there being a constant battle
A battle.
between self and truth.
Oh, yeah. He lays out this central
But
conflict
it's like this epic showdown
between two forces,
for control of our hearts and minds.
our hearts and minds.
Really.
On one side is the self with its weapons of passion, pride, self-will.
The dark side.
Yeah, the tools of darkness, he says.
Yeah.
And on the other side is truth, wielding gentleness, patience, and love,
The light side.
the instruments of light.
And it's not about achieving some kind of perfect balance.
He's saying, no, you're either serving one master or the other.
It's like you have to choose a side.
You can't serve two opposing armies, you have to pick one or the other.
You can't be a warrior for peace
Yeah,
and also be a soldier for your own selfish desires.
it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's where Allen connects this inner battle to our desire for peace.
He's saying so many of our struggles,
So many of our struggles.
sorrow, disappointment, external conflicts, even stem
Um,
from clinging to that self,
Yeah. It's like clinging to that.
to that ego.
To that ego.
Whereas aligning ourselves with truth offers a path to liberation.
It's like, yeah.
It's like that demanding child throwing a tantrum
That's a great analogy.
versus the wise, composed parent who knows what's best.
Exactly. And this inner struggle
This inner struggle,
isn't just limited to our thoughts.
it plays out.
It plays out in how we interact with the world.
How we interact.
If we're clinging to self,
We become defensive, argumentative,
always needing to be.
always needing to be right.
Right.
When we follow truth, we become more introspective,
Yeah.
more willing to question our own assumptions, and we prioritize love over being right,
Yeah.
you know? What's more important?
It's two totally different approaches
Two different ways of approaching life.
to life.
Mm.
And the impact of those choices, I think, is pretty clear.
Yeah.
And it made me think of that passage from the Bhagavad Gita,
Oh, yeah.
where Krishna's describing the qualities of someone who's walking the path of truth.
Right.
And it's all about fearlessness,
Humility.
humility, a love of learning, compassion,
Compassion.
all these qualities that we don't typically associate with ego-driven behavior.
Absolutely.
Right.
It highlights that contrast.
It really highlights that
They're
contrast.
between these two paths.
And speaking of contrasts, Alan uses this really interesting analogy
Right.
to describe this divine image
Oh,
that he believes exists within everyone.
within us all.
And he says it's like a sculpture
It's like a sculpture
that's waiting to be revealed.
awaiting to be revealed. And that image,
That image is selfless love.
selfless love.
Oh,
So it's like we each have this masterpiece
hidden inside.
hidden inside.
Oh, and then
And this journey to inner peace involves
chiseling away at the rough edges
chiseling away at the rough edges
to reveal that beauty.
to reveal that beauty.
Yeah.
And he's really upfront about the fact that this work is challenging.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he says it requires effort, patience, faith.
You're going to need all of
Excellent.
those things
Yeah, you're going to stumble.
and more.
There are going to be setbacks.
But he urges us to see those moments,
Not as failures.
not as failures, but as
As learning opportunities.
learning opportunities. And he really links this process
The process of self-discovery.
of self-discovery
Directly to our pursuit of peace.
to the pursuit of peace.
It's all connected.
And this is where I think it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He makes a distinction between two types of love. Two types of love.
He talks about human love
Human love.
and divine love.
Divine love.
And he argues that understanding the difference between these two
Is key to finding lasting peace.
is key to finding that lasting peace that we're all
Oh.
looking for.
Yeah.
So human love, he says,
Or human love.
is often conditional
Oh, yeah.
and possessive.
It's like, oh.
Like imagine a parent who only shows love and approval to their child when they get good grades.
Right, that's a very conditional,
That's a very
limited form of love.
limited and conditional form of love.
Yeah.
So how does that differ from divine love?
Divine love is unconditional,
Okay.
all embracing.
It's not dependent on those.
It's like the sun shining its light on everyone equally.
I see.
Doesn't matter who you are, what you do.
It's just there.
It's just there.
Yeah. And he acknowledges that human love is important.
Of course.
It brings us joy,
Connection.
companionship.
But he says it can also be a source of suffering
When those relationships
when they change or end.
or end,
Yeah.
it's like that heartbreak.
That pain of losing that human love or not receiving the love that we crave
Can actually push us
can push
towards seeking that more
Should hit the
unconditional
divine love.
divine love.
Yeah.
It's like it cracks our hearts open
Cracks open our hearts.
to make space
Yeah, make space
for something bigger.
for a more expansive kind of love.
Exactly. And that leads us to the last point I want to touch on in this section,
Okay.
which is where he talks about this concept of selfless love
Yeah.
being the truest expression of truth.
He's saying it's not just about
It's not just what we believe.
what we believe intellectually.
It's about how we live,
It's about how we live,
especially
when things are tough.
when things are tough. Our
It's
actions
under pressure.
reveal far more
The
about our understanding of truth
any big pronouncements we might make.
than any words.
Right.
He says, patience, forgiveness,
Compassion.
compassion.
Those are the true indicators.
The true indicator
That's someone who
of someone who's aligned with truth.
aligned with truth,
It's about walking the walk,
walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
not just talking the talk. And that's where he introduces
Yeah.
this concept of the law of love,
This principle.
which he believes underpins
the entire universe.
the entire universe.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to explore that further,
Oh, yeah. We'll delve deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
because it sounds like this idea of the law of love
Yeah.
ties everything together.
It does.
It ties together our inner transformation
It does.
our relationship,
It does.
how we interact with the world.
Yeah.
Like the key
It's the kid.
to the whole thing.
To everything.
So we were talking about this law of love before.
Right. This principle that Alan described.
Yeah, like this foundation of the entire universe.
Yeah. It's not just like some airy-fairy concept.
Yeah.
You know, he's talking about an active force
Okay.
that expresses itself through selfless action.
So it's not just a feeling. It's like,
just a feeling.
it's gotta be.
It's something you do.
Yeah. You got to put it into action.
Put it into action.
Yeah.
He says when we align ourselves with this law, we naturally gravitate towards serving others.
Okay. So it's like, we talk about being of service.
Right.
But it can sometimes feel like a chore or an obligation.
Yeah.
Like you should do it.
Like
you got to do it.
Yeah.
Is he talking about something deeper than that?
Much deeper. He's talking about a more profound understanding of service, where it's not about duty.
It's not about what you get out of it.
Or personal gain.
Okay.
It's an outpouring of love that just seeks the well-being of others.
So it's like spontaneous.
Spontaneous and unconditional.
Not like calculated.
Like a natural expression of that love.
Okay. He even goes so far as to say that selfless service is like the highest expression.
The highest expression.
Of this law of love.
Yeah. The most direct way to tap into its power. He uses the analogy of a seed.
Okay.
A seed doesn't hoard its potential.
Right.
It gives itself completely to the process of growth.
Right.
And through that, it produces something far greater than itself.
Yeah.
So it's through that selfless giving that the seed fulfills its purpose.
Right.
And similarly, we find our greatest fulfillment not in clinging to our desires, but in giving ourselves freely.
To the service of others.
To the service of others. Yeah. You got to lose yourself to find yourself.
You got to die to self.
Right.
To experience that more expansive life.
It's like a paradox.
A paradox.
But I kind of get it.
Right.
So does this mean like we should neglect our own needs?
No, he's not saying that. He's not saying become a martyr.
Right.
It's about finding that harmonious balance.
Yeah.
Okay. Between self-care and care for others.
Got it.
As we cultivate inner peace and align ourselves with truth, our capacity to love and serve just expands naturally.
Like it just flows out.
It just flows out,
And he uses a really great analogy to describe this process.
Yeah.
He talks about transmuting like base metals.
Base metals into gold.
Into unalloyed gold of love.
Yeah.
So it's like
transforming those baser impulses.
Yeah, there's like selfish.
The selfish.
The greed, the lust, all that stuff.
Into something
beautiful.
Yeah, into something more noble.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen overnight.
It's a process.
It's a process.
It's an ongoing practice.
It's a practice.
Choosing
love over
fear.
Fear, generosity, over scarcity, forgiveness, over
resentment.
It's like we're
spiritual alchemists.
Yeah.
Slowly transforming our inner landscape.
To reflect that beauty.
To reflect the beauty of that law of love.
Yeah. So practically speaking.
Okay.
How do we do that?
He gives some good advice.
Right. Because it's easy to talk about.
It's easy to.
The high-minded ideals.
Right.
But how do we actually put this into action?
Right. He says we start by shifting our focus from self to truth.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
That means letting go of the need to be right.
Okay.
The desire to control outcomes. The tendency to judge. To judge ourselves and others.
It's like stepping back from the drama.
Of
our own ego.
Yeah.
And trying to see things.
This is a bigger picture.
From a bigger perspective.
From a more compassionate perspective.
And he says we should cultivate. Things like patience. Kindness. Understanding. Especially when we're dealing with people or situations that are
tough. Challenging. And every interaction
is an opportunity.
It's an opportunity
to practice these things.
So
it's like those small moments throughout the day where we make the choice. To align ourselves.
With that law of love.
Yeah. So it could be like offering a genuine compliment.
Right.
Lending a helping hand.
Yeah.
Just listening.
Listen with an open heart.
With an open heart to somebody.
Yeah. He sends
It doesn't have to be these...
It doesn't have to be these grand gestures,
right.
you know.
These big heroic...
It's those little things.
The little things.
Those everyday expressions of love and compassion.
That can make a big difference.
That can make a huge difference.
Because it creates this ripple effect.
A ripple effect of positivity.
And he says, as more and more of us choose this path...
As more and more of us do this,
you know,
we collectively create a more peaceful and harmonious world.
It's like that vision.
A beautiful vision.
Of a more loving and just.
More loving, just.
And peaceful.
Yeah. And he doesn't shy away from the fact that
this path is not always easy.
It's going to be hard.
It's hard.
There are going to be times when we fall back.
We're going to fall back.
Into those old
patterns.
You know?
We get triggered.
We get triggered by other people.
Right.
Things happen.
Life throws us curveballs.
But
he says it's important to not give up.
Don't give up.
To see those moments as opportunities.
As opportunities.
To learn and grow.
Like
learning to ride a bike.
You're going to fall off a few times.
You're going to fall.
But you get back on.
And
eventually you find your balance. Yeah.
He talks about this.
He says cultivate self-compassion.
Yeah.
Recognize that we're all works in progress.
We're all works in progress.
You know? It's not about being perfect.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about making that conscious choice.
Yeah.
To move in the direction of love and service.
And it seems like this process of refining ourselves.
Yeah.
Aligning with this law of love.
It leads to
a deeper experience.
Of inner peace. It's not something you find out there.
It's not something...
It's something you cultivate.
You cultivate within. That's a great point.
And that leads us perfectly into the next section.
Okay.
Where Alan explores this concept of perfect peace.
Okay.
Which we'll get into in the next part.
I'm excited to dive into that. So we've been talking about aligning ourselves with truth and embracing this selfless love and dedicating ourselves to service.
Yeah, like all these things are pointing towards...
It feels like it's all leading.
That perfect peace that Alan talks about.
To that perfect peace. But is it really attainable?
You know, he doesn't present it as some unattainable utopia.
Right.
He says it's a real possibility. You know, for anyone willing to do the work. And he contrasts the turmoil and the change of like the external world with the stillness that exists at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
Like think about the depths of the ocean.
Okay.
Untouched by the wildest storms.
Right.
And he says that same duality exists within each of us.
So even amidst all the craziness,
yeah,
there's a place of deep calm within.
There's that stillness inside.
That's a nice thought.
Yeah.
But how do we get there?
Well, he says it's not about disconnecting from reality or suppressing our emotions.
Right.
It's not about being ignorant or naive.
It's not about sticking your head in the sand.
No. It's about self-mastery.
Okay.
Aligning ourselves with truth.
So it's like cultivating this inner strength.
Yeah, an inner strength.
That can help us weather the storms.
Allows us to weather the storms without losing our center.
Without getting blown around.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think of that analogy he uses.
Oh, yeah.
Of Heaven's Gate being narrow and difficult to unlock.
Yeah, and the bolts on that gate
are
all the things that keep us trapped.
In the ego?
In ego.
Yeah.
The pride, the passion, the greed.
The lust.
All that stuff that creates suffering.
Finding that perfect peace requires effort.
Effort.
Yeah.
A willingness to confront the stuff in ourselves that's resisting peace.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's possible.
Okay.
He says, this is peace, to conquer love of self and lust of life, to tear deep-rooted passion from the heart, to still the inward strife.
Wow. Powerful.
Powerful imagery.
Yeah.
He's not saying repress or deny it.
Right.
He's saying transform it.
Like we could become alchemists?
Alchemists of our own souls.
Of our own souls.
Yeah.
Transforming those base metals.
Into the gold of love.
Into the gold of love. And he talks about consciously withdrawing from that external chaos.
Yeah.
To spend time in quiet contemplation.
Yeah, connecting with that source of peace within.
He calls this our real and eternal self.
The part of us that's always connected
to
the divine source.
To that divine source.
Of wisdom and love.
So we're not going to find it out there.
No, you find it within.
You find it within.
And it takes work.
Yeah. He's clear about that.
Persistent effort, discipline, a willingness to let go.
Of all those attachments.
Of the attachments that keep us bound to suffering.
He says this inner work
It's a lifelong journey.
It's a lifelong journey.
It's not a destination.
It's a process.
It's a process.
And as we do this work,
as we dedicate ourselves to this,
we'll start to experience glimpses.
Glimpses of that perfect peace.
Little tastes.
Little moments.
Clarity.
Clarity, serenity.
Serenity that remind us of our true nature.
Yeah. And those moments fuel our commitment.
It's like those little moments become fuel.
To keep going.
To keep going.
To keep moving forward on this path.
It's a beautiful vision that he paints.
Of humanity realizing its inherent divinity.
Yeah. He's saying everyone can awaken.
To their own perfect peace.
And when we do that,
it creates this collective harmony that extends throughout the universe.
It's an amazing thought.
Even amidst all the chaos and the challenges, there's this underlying current of love and peace.
That connects us all.
That connects us all.
And we all have the power to tap into that.
We all have that power.
And create a better world.
To contribute to a more enlightened future.
That's really the takeaway from our deep dive into the way of peace.
A call to action.
Yeah. It's a call to embark on that journey.
A journey of self-discovery.
Of self-discovery and transformation.
Yeah, to cultivate that inner sanctuary of peace.
Yeah.
And to be a beacon of light.
To be a beacon of light in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
I think so too.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with some valuable insights.
And inspiration.
And inspiration for your own journey.
For your own journey.
To a more peaceful and fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
And until next time, may you find peace within and spread it outwards into the world.
Beautiful.